Welcome back. So this is going to be part 2 of our Polish stereotypes myth busting session. I hope you enjoyed the first part. We got plenty of questions to ask for the second. So enjoy. Okay, next question.
Next question. So we are on question number 7, or stereotype number 7. So, is everything that Polish people eat pickled?
Okay, so I would say there is a high degree of pickled food here in a way. So it's very kind of like, so if you're having a burger, for example, you know, like in McDonald's, you're like, oh, you have that shitty little pickle, you often pick it out, tastes like terrible. Or like if you're in America, you have like a nice big wedge of pickle in your burger. This is very common here. In fact, you have like sort of pickles, or like they prefer to call them like pickled cucumbers, is a big snack, I would say, in Poland. A lot of the food they have is preserved. And actually, like my girlfriend, for example, she loves sauerkraut. She keeps saying how healthy and amazing sauerkraut is. And she actually drinks the juice. So pickle juice, sauerkraut juice, she says it's an amazing hangover cure. You can actually buy it bottled. It's that popular here. So, of course, not everything is pickled, but yeah, there is a degree of pickled food or kind of cabbage in the diet for sure. I mean, typically, I would say your classic Polish diet is like meat and potatoes. You know, that's your main staple of Polish cuisine. You know, a lot of dishes based around that. I've been to restaurants like Pyrobar that are entirely like potato-based menus, and oh god, they do know how to cook potatoes here. I mean, and they make great vodka out of it as well.
Very good. Next one. So, do Polish men like to throw water over women?
Okay, so this is perhaps not a stereotype, it's probably less known about, but there is actually a thing behind this. So there is this tradition, every Easter Monday, you are supposed to throw water over women. It's potentially pagan, it's kind of been adopted by Christianity, and it's meant to be like a kind of, I suppose, like a fertility thing. It's meant to promote like getting the rains for the harvest and that kind of thing. It's called like Schmigus Dingus or something like that. And it happens every year. I have to admit, I haven't witnessed it in Warsaw. People generally recommend that unless you have an umbrella and some waterproofs, you stay inside. But also on the flip side, I've heard that they've kind of made it illegal to just throw water at people. But, you know, you would probably find it's more common in like the small villages within people's households. I remember this year, I was actually in quarantine for this date, and my girlfriend's mother reminded me of this tradition. However, I live in fear of my girlfriend a lot of the time. Polish women are quite fierce. And I was kind of afraid to do it to her because I wondered what would happen, especially in a quarantine situation. Maybe next year I'll try and sneak up on her. But literally, you know, they'll throw water over women. Sometimes they actually chuck women into lakes and things like that. And of course the women get a bit of revenge. And it's just like a random little thing, which I think is just adds a little bit of character. You know, the tradition can be fun.
It's very helpful throwing water over Richard to help him wake up in the mornings.
Don't try this.
Next one. So, religion. Are Polish people really religious? Very religious, Richard?
So this is a mix. I know people who are very devout, Catholics. I mean, Catholicism is, of course, the number one religion in Poland. It does actually have a strong part of people's lives here. A lot of people go to church. In fact, Christianity is even kind of embedded into the politics here. The party in power at the moment, they're very much behind the Catholic Church, and to be honest, the Catholic Church probably gives them a bit of money as well. So yeah, religion is a massive thing here. But at the same time, I know a lot of people, kind of the younger generation, who are a bit atheist, a bit anti-religion. So it's a bit of a mix. Not everyone in Poland is like super religious. And it's like a degree, like anywhere. But for sure, comparing to the UK, you will find religion is a much more important thing than it is back home. Totally.
So I mentioned at the start of the video about how me living in England, there you get a relatively high number of Polish people coming over to work on farms. So thinking about farms and farming, is farming a large part of the Polish economy?
Okay, so I got in a little bit of trouble on one of my earlier videos because I was talking about the droughts in Poland, and I was like, oh my god, this is going to affect the farmers, and farming is a very big part of Poland. And then my girlfriend was horrified. What are you doing? You're giving the world the perception that Poland is like some third world country. Okay, so agriculture is actually only 2.4% of the economy, of the GDP within Poland. Actually, 57.4% is service-based. One thing I will say though, is I get the impression that a lot of the fruit and the vegetables that you find in the shops is perhaps more locally sourced rather than imported like it is in the UK. And I'd say in general it's a lot fresher. The quality of the fruit and veg is a lot fresher, a lot better in the shops than back home. And you can really feel the difference in the taste, like with strawberries, for example. They have so much more flavour than that crap you buy in Sainsbury's or Tesco's.
Okay.
But I'm sorry, and I know some families, like they like grow potatoes and things like that. So definitely there is farming in Poland. It is important, but it's not like the biggest thing in this country. Totally.
Thank you for your insight, Richard. So next one, controversial one, stereotype. That's the caveat here. Are Polish people racist?
Okay, so this is a very divisive question, but I wanted to include it because I think it's worth to make the point. So being honest, when you live in Poland and you look around, probably 99% of the faces you see are white. You would not say that there is an amazing amount of ethnic diversity in Poland. Actually, apparently about 5% of the population in Poland is foreign. A lot of that comes from countries like Ukraine and some neighbouring European countries. You do have quite a few people from India, from Pakistan, perhaps a few people from Africa, a number of sort of Americans as well. Do I think Poland is racist? No, is my honest answer. I think one thing I'll say is, of course, in every country you have a degree of racism. You can't escape that. Certainly, like in the UK, there's a lot of things, like in America with like Black Lives Matter and these movements that, are very kind of anti-racist, even if they have some other agendas, I would say. But in Poland, sure, it can happen. I mean, like I have this Indian friend, for example, and he said that he has had the odd things said to him. He feels that people are perhaps a little bit uncomfortable around him. But he also indicated this is like 1% of the time, and he's been in Warsaw for, almost as long as I have, probably, so about 2 years. And yeah, I honestly think it's fairer to say that polls are not big on political correctness, which is something I adore, and it's one of the reasons I love this country. And I think it's one of the things that really is creating so much division in the UK. It's destroying UK culture in a way. You know, we can't tell jokes like we could in the 70s. Everything is perceived as racist. Everything is perceived, as a negative. But sometimes I like the idea that you can joke about anything to a certain degree. And the Poles very much embrace this. A lot of their humour, it doesn't worry about offending people because people know it's a joke. People don't take these things overly seriously. So honestly, I think the perception that Poles as a nation are racist, I think is really, really wrong. And I think they're very welcoming. They integrate people who come to this country very well. And, this is the perception I have. Maybe people in the comments, maybe you've had some bad experiences, maybe you want to kind of correct what I've said. But from what I've talked to, foreign nationals here, I've had very little perception that they've had problems in this country.
That's good to hear, Richard. Thank you. So, next question. I studied geography at university. Now, Poland is a very large country geographically, and it kind of sits to the east of Germany. So, given its proximity to the country that is Russia, are there heavy links between Poland and Russia?
So this is again a bit of a divisive question. So anyone who knows anything about Polish history will be aware that Russia has been very involved in Poland for hundreds if not thousands of years, just purely geographically. I mean, you've got Germany on one side, you kind of got Russia on the other side, not directly but pretty much, and so whenever these two nations have kind of been at war, Poland sits right in the middle. So there have been a lot of kind of Russian incursions into Poland. But one of the reasons that the situation is a bit divisive is after World War II, basically Poland became like a satellite state, for the USSR. So it was kind of, even though it technically had its own government and its own autonomy, the Russians were basically pulling the strings in Poland, and it was a bit like an occupation. Poles didn't have passports, they weren't allowed to leave the country without special permission. The books that people had were very, very regulated, so there were a lot of book burnings and a lot of like underground newspapers and books used to circulate. There was definitely like a resistance movement, as it were, trying to keep Polish culture and tradition. So I wouldn't say that Poles hate Russians, but they do hate Russia. The clear distinction that, the Russian people are welcome here. I know a few Russians here and I think they feel quite comfortable. But when you talk about, say, the idea of the Soviet Union and the Russian government, the Poles are very, very skeptical about that. You do perhaps get some people in the older generations who said that, when Poland was kind of a communist country, that things were better. But these days, no. Poland is completely separated from Russia, though their politics might speak otherwise. That will be another video.
Good stuff. Right, moving on. So, next stereotype. Is there a lot of crime in Poland?
Okay, so there are a few jokes about this. So there's this one saying, a German saying, and it's like, come to Poland, your car will already be waiting for you when you get there. So this was to give the impression that Poles steal German cars and take them back to Poland. I don't know if this was ever true, but it's like a saying that goes around. It's a very negative one about Polish people. One of the things I've personally found living here for 2.5 years is, firstly, I've never really witnessed anything bad happening. I can walk the streets, dead of night, I feel completely safe. I have heard about the odd drunken scuffle, which you get everywhere. But have I heard of any bank robberies? Have I heard about stabbings in the street? The answer is no. I think Poland is an incredibly safe country. I mean, it's a bit of a random example, but if you're in a bar, you can leave your pint on a table in a bar and perhaps go to the loo, go outside to have a cigarette or something like that, and at the same time, when you come back, your pint will still be there. Could you say the same thing in the UK? I don't think so. So really, I think, you know, the Poles are very law-abiding people. Yeah, they like to bend the rules when they don't like them, like any country would. But on the whole, I think it's a very safe country to live in, and it's one of the reasons I love living here so much. I feel very safe on the streets.
Richard, so one thing that we're not very good at in the UK is complaining. So, do Polish people complain a lot about things?
Oh, hell yes. Yeah, it's a national trait in Poland to never really be happy, you know, to complain about things a lot, you know. I mean, this is what they say. This is what Poles will freely admit, that they do complain. I mean, you know, much as we do in the UK, I think it can be linked to the weather. I mean, the weather in Poland is generally a bit nicer than the UK. We're sat here in September and nice, glorious sunshine. But yeah, for sure, if Polish people aren't happy about something, they are going to tell you about it. Their communication is a lot more direct. And this is, again, something I really appreciate. Maybe not the case with everyone, but certainly I feel that if I'm doing something wrong, I'm going to find out about it very quickly here. People don't kind of brush over the facts like they can in the UK. Yeah. Okay, so thank you. You've still been watching. So, again, this is getting a bit long, so we're going to call this the end of part 2. A lot more questions and material to come in part 3, and some conclusions that we've made from all of this. So please, you know, come back next week, stay tuned and enjoy.